Thank you so much, Advik, for joining us on this podcast at Dawdle Live. We have got an innovative founder with us. And before we go and understand what is the innovation that he's working on, would give a brief introduction into Advik's background and him leading to starting his company. Always been an entrepreneurial, technologist and business leader kind of a person. And he's right now serving as a co-founder and CEO at Optivus Technologies Private Limited. He brings in a strong blend of consulting since he was with EY, automation and engineering experience from EY, Tesla, and Georgia Institute of Technology. He's a graduate from there. With a hands-on experience on RPA, manufacturing systems, and product strategy, he focuses on building scalable, impact-driven technology solutions. I hope this was a good intro, Advik. Welcome you.
No, very comprehensive. Thank you so much, Rishikesh, for having me. As you said, I'm Advik, co-founder of Optivus Technologies. I actually started Optivus with my co-founder Udyan, right? And we were both roommates at Georgia Tech, as you said, right? We both completed our undergraduate education from there, and that's how we met, actually. After college, we kind of took complementary paths, right? As you said, I went into Big Four consulting. I was working on the intelligent automation team at EY. And I think that really gave me a very comprehensive look at how organizations are operating, right, today, especially in India, right? How decisions are getting made, right? Where processes are sort of breaking. And Udyan went into the startup route in AI, right? So much closer to the product and engineering. And his focus was really delivering product, right? Iterating and making systems really work in production. So around 8 months ago, almost a year now, actually, we realized that we were both kind of seeing the same gap in the market, right? Companies right now, they want the benefit of AI, but they need it a way that is sort of fits their mold, right? And fits into their workflow. And so that's what led us to starting Optivus. We're trying to bring together the consulting lens with our strong AI build capability, right? Happy to jump in now.
I think I've got a question. Like I was thinking, what does this name Optivus mean? Like,
So actually, it's a bit of an abstract name, Rishikesh. Something we sort of came up with. Something I think it brings to mind growth, innovation. Obviously, that connotation of optimal is there, right? But trying to bring a word which is sort of inspiring a forward movement. I think. I don't know if that's coming out in the word. If that's what you're feeling as well.
yeah, because I was thinking Optivus is optimal for sure.
Right.
And last VUS is like velocity,
Correct. Something like that. Yeah. Exactly.
something like that.
Forward
Like,
movement. Yeah.
yeah,
Correct.
forward movement in an optimal way. Right. Great.
Exactly.
So I think I've got the first one for you is that, we see many companies feel this pressure to adopt AI,
Hmm.
but it's kind of a struggle for them to connect it to a real business outcome. So
Hmm.
how do you help leaders identify where AI can genuinely move the needle?
Okay. See, I think Rishikesh, most discussions we have right at the moment with potential clients, it starts with them saying we need AI,
Yeah.
right? But where we come in, we like to start it with the sort of counterpoint to that question, right? Which is what do you actually want to improve, right?
Hmm.
And what I've seen, this could be a combination of a lot of things, right? It could be faster turnaround, fewer errors, lower cost, right? Better conversion, but it always has to be something that you can really measure, right? What we like to do then is trace that back to the exact step, which is the actual bottleneck for them, right? This isn't like some sort of guesswork, right? In the first week of every engagement, we literally sit with the team, we'll watch the process end to end, right? And we ask real examples, right? Those examples might be emails, tickets, invoices, resumes, right? Whatever that workflow is running on. Right. Once we see that real work, the bottlenecks are usually pretty obvious, right? It could be like too many handoffs, too many manual approvals, right? You have your best people copy pasting between many tools you might be using, right? We also like to do a quick feasibility check, right? So, do we have the right data access? Do we have the right integrations, right? Whether this implementation can be done safely in an organization. It's better, we found to always call out issues earlier rather than start building something and then you run into problems.
So it's more around educating these people as well, like when you're talking to these leaders.
100%, right? Because I think the two questions on everyone's mind, or the two problem statements on a leader's mind, is that they need AI, but unsure of where to implement it and how to implement it, right? So it's always about making sure that there's a correct starting point for AI implementation, right? There has to be groundwork laid down. Your data has to be there. And another thing is, I mean, from a leader's perspective, the change management aspect is very important, right? You have to be sure that your people are ready to adopt a new system and use a new system, right? Nothing works without that onboarding of a new application, right? And everyone has to have that buy-in.
Everyone has to have that buy-in, and they should not be scared that AI is
Correct,
coming
correct.
in.
very often you'll see, you build something and then quietly it will sort of fall off people's radars internally in a company and they'll go back to their old way of working, right?
Yes.
That's something you have to ensure doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure your experience at EY must have, kind of given you so many use cases
Absolutely.
of that.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of consulting, right? It's not just about implementing something and then leaving. You have to make sure your systems get adopted. Yeah,
Yes. So, a lot of the leaders are kind of evaluating whether, what are those business problems which are best suited for agentic AI versus
Mm,
traditional automation. Would you like to suggest something on that?
sure. Yeah. So when we say traditional automation, I think here we're speaking about technologies like RPA, right? I think that's a ideal contender, right? I
Yeah.
think those technologies are best, Shikesh, when the path or the workflow is predictable, right? You
Mm,
have very clean inputs, right? And you have a clear workflow that you want to automate, right?
mm,
You have the business rules are clearly defined, right?
mm,
Now, agentic AI or Gen AI helps when the goal is not as clear, right? You might have some unstructured text, right? You might have missing information, or there might be a lot of exception cases. Right? So, for example, let's say you have a human who is reading an email or a PDF, right? They have to interpret what it means. Then they have to go and update two or three systems, right? And maybe chase someone for a missing detail, right? That becomes a very good candidate for an agentic AI implementation. In practice, I think we sort of mix both, right? It's about automating the clean 80%, right?
mm,
And then using agentic AI for that scattered or messy 20%, right? Which most often causes the most delays, right? So
mm.
we like to implement a mix of both.
And why does it cause most of the delays?
You have the most manual steps there, right, Rishikesh? You will have the most manual chasing up of people within organizations, right?
Mm,
What we also see in India is that people are using three or four tools, as I said, right,
mm,
to do one task, right? You're
mm,
you're moving from your email into an Excel,
mm,
into your CRM, right, and then going back to email to send that off, right? There's not one core system of engagement, right?
mm.
And that's where an agentic system really, I think, proves its worth.
Right. And since you have already, kind of talked and working with a number of clients, where do you think, Advik, AI transformation efforts break down between strategy and execution?
I think I'll even take that question back one step, right?
Yeah.
Before strategy comes the initial discussions, right? And I think the most common failure that I've seen is the quote unquote demo trap, right? I think something can look very impressive at first, right? But it very often doesn't result in the day-to-day work actually changing, right? So and you're asking me where does it break down? It's usually in the most boring parts, right? Maybe, for example, we don't get data access well, right? Or people ownership is very unclear, or as I was talking about before, the adoption never gets managed,
Mm,
right? That is a clear sign that things are breaking down, right? We've seen, or at least I've seen in my experience, teams building something for weeks, and
mm,
then you discover that okay, the most critical system that you needed cannot be integrated. And as I said, if no one owns the adoption and the owns that new workflow you've built, people tend to silently go back to their old ways of working, spreadsheets, emails, right? The other thing I think is reliability, right? So an AI implementation is not a deliver once and forget sort of
mm,
implementation. It's critical to constantly test behavior, constantly monitor performance, right? Have a very clear feedback loop upon which you will inform what changes to make, right? You might implement something today and then 3 months later realize that okay, you're getting this feedback from the system. You have to go back and make some tweaks and make some changes. Yeah,
Also, what I see is that, you have been following a consulting led discovery approach rather than a plug and play kind of a thing before building
100%.
anything. So, why is this so critical to ensuring ROI?
This discovery process, Rishikesh, is where ROI really comes out, really comes to light, right? What we do is we start with baselining what's exactly happening today, right?
Mm,
For example, that can be what is your current cycle time, what's your current error rate, right? Volume,
mm,
what is the count of manual touch points per case, right? And
mm.
then after the implementation, we'll measure the same KPIs to ensure that what we've implemented is actually moving the needle. For this, we try to be as hands-on as possible, right? We'll pick a sample set of cases and literally count the steps, right? While drawing out the full workflow. Um,
Mm,
this is very important. It tells us what to build, what not to build, right?
mm.
What things cannot be ignored, like human in the loop or approvals.
Yeah,
And from an engineering standpoint, it also prevents surprises later on, right? The build process is actually much faster and much cleaner.
got it. And whenever you are implementing an AI project, there will be multiple use cases, that has to be taken care of. So, how do you prioritize like which use cases to take off first, especially in the initial
Yeah.
90 days of your client engagement?
Yeah, the initial 90 days are really important, Rishikesh. And I think in the first 90 days, we don't try to target everything or transform everything, right? The aim that we go for is one win, right? That is visible, right? And picking one use case which is actually worth scaling. Right now, How we do this is in our initial working sessions, we'll usually work with the client to rank use cases on a matrix. Right? And that matrix can be in terms of a lot of things like impact, feasibility, risk, time to value. Right? And we'll really plot the use cases out and use a numerical sort of driven approach. It keeps the use case discovery more grounded. Our bias will always be towards things that are actually measurable and adoptable. Right, two very keywords there. High volume use cases are good, right? Use cases with a clear owner and use cases for a workflow which the team is actually willing to change. Right? If it's not meeting these criteria, it's usually not a good candidate for the first 90 days.
Got it. The last point was very critical. Like the team is willing to change, right? So kind of a vote by, most of the employees in the company that this is my pain problem. Help me solve.
Exactly. I'd be happy to build a lot of things, right? But
Yeah.
if if the client's team is not willing to adopt that workflow, there's really no point moving forward there.
Yeah. Can you share an example, Advik, like where an Optivus built AI system replaced a complex manual workflow?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a common pattern is high volume work, right? So I would use recruiting here as a good example, right? Recruiters get flooded with resumes, right? And I think that early screening, right, becomes very rushed and inconsistent, right? Because at the moment it's quite most of it's manual, right? So we built Janus, which is an AI native applicant tracking system, right? And we're trying to standardize exactly that step, right? So we provide role based scoring, clear reasons and rationale behind the score that each candidate gets. And then we also do that structured screening, WhatsApp or email screening, which essentially allows recruiters to spend less time deciding, more time deciding, but not sorting.
Yes.
The way we do it is, take an actual role, we pull a sample of candidates initially with the customer, and ask the recruiter to walk us through how they shortlist today. That becomes the baseline I was talking about, right? Which allows us to measure the before and after. We're also with Janus trying to solve the black box problem, unquote unquote black box problem, right? The problem we've seen with AI implementations is trust in AI, right? So in Janus, teams can actually see the actual factors that drove the outcome or final score for a candidate, right? It makes the impact measurable, right? So providing a rationale with every metric is very important.
And the way you
Yeah.
have started, Advik, I was thinking is that, you guys can come up with a suite of products, like because you actually are working very closely with the clients and understanding their problems. So do you
Yeah.
also plan to come up with a suite of products, like maybe in the coming 5, 6 years?
Absolutely. I mean, so we have a product in HR now, right? Currently, what we are building is two other products. We have a marketing solution that is more on the content generation side, right? So mapping the customers or clients' DNA into a sort of knowledge engine, right?
Mm.
And then using that to power content generation for the client, right? That could be LinkedIn, blog posts, press releases, Twitter posts, right? A one-stop shop sort of content assistant, right? So that is our second product, which is in production now. Simultaneously, we are working on a master data management platform. So largely through my experience at EY as well, I saw that most companies, I think, especially in India, struggle with master data management, right? Or are not using anything for master data management. Excel is driving master data still, right? So we are at the moment started building out an AI native MDM platform.
Yes.
So something to look forward to, I think, in the coming months.
It's like data lake kind of CDP.
So yeah, I mean, so you can say people use, for example, SAP is a very popular product in India, right? Worldwide, it's a very popular product, right? Now, SAP will provide you a data lake, exactly, right? And they will give you tables, right? They won't give you any information intelligence on those tables, on that data, right? What we are trying to provide is, let's say you have a vendor master, which is 30,000 rows, right? If you upload your vendor master into our platform, what we'll give you is immediate AI intelligence on that master, right? It will tell you what data is wrong, what data needs to be fixed, and then our AI will actually go in and make those changes, right? So, yeah,
When it comes to AI, we can't kind of run away from the security, governance, and reliability of AI systems, which leaders usually worry
yeah,
about. So, how does
yeah,
Optivus design enterprise grade AI right from day one?
sure. I think we're very strict about this, Rishikesh, right? Because our AI implementations very often touch sensitive internal workflows,
Mm,
right? So, first of all comes access control, right? The systems we build and the users that use the system will only see what they genuinely need to see, right?
mm,
Very strong role based access control and permissions, right?
mm,
And clear boundaries for our AI models, right? That's
mm,
the first step.
mm.
Second becomes action control, right? So access control, then action control. Constraining what the AI model can do versus what it can suggest versus what it cannot do, right? So a practical step, that you take early on with the client is writing a clear do not do list, right?
Yes.
Which then we inform our models that, okay, you're not allowed to touch this, you're not allowed to access this.
Yes.
this step, for example, always requires human approval, right? Third, I think, becomes reliability, right? So doing comprehensive testing and QA, right? As I said, constant monitoring in production, right? Audit logs become very important, right? Providing the client with audit logs for every action taken, right? So that they should always be able to answer the question that what happened, why did it happen, right? Who did it, right? And that's very important. In many cases, we run our applications in a shadow mode, right? Basically, before they actually touch the live workflow, basically the AI will run in the background. It will produce the outputs, right? But it won't be integrated with your systems yet. Yeah, humans can just review the output. That's how we sort of earn trust before the full integration.
And with a lot of, all these off the shelf tools available, AI tools,
Yeah.
could you also give some pointers, to all the leaders, like when does custom built AI make more sense?
Hmm. Hmm. So I think, Rishikesh, if your workflow is standard, right, and your needs are common, let's say I was to take an example of this. Let's take like a basic help desk ticketing flow,
Mm,
right,
mm,
or an expense approval, right. These are very standard flows, right. So for these flows, I would say buying is usually the right move, right. There are mature tools for this, right, which do these workflows very well, and you don't want to reinvent them, right?
mm,
I think custom makes sense when the workflow is very core to how you operate, and if you need very deep integration, right, or
mm,
flexibility that an off-the-shelf tool might not give you. So
mm.
one sign we look for a lot, or that we see a lot, is teams stitching multiple tools together,
Yeah.
using spreadsheets, email, manual follow-ups, right? In this case, nobody has that clean source of truth, right, for what's happening. And
Mm,
that's where a core platform of engagement, custom built, right, is really beneficial. Right. And to your point, often the best answer is hybrid. You
mm,
buy one layer and then you
mm.
custom build the engagement or orchestration or intelligence on top of it, which targets the part which is more unique to you. Yeah.
This is very insightful. And, what kind of organizations, Advik, have you seen deriving maximum value working with you?
Ops heavy. I think ops heavy
Mm,
organizations get the most value. And what I mean by ops heavy is teams that are buried in repetitive decision work, right?
mm,
And I keep coming back to the same point of scattered inputs, right? You have emails, you have PDFs, you have chats coming in, right?
mm,
Multiple systems. I think in terms of business domains, it could really be anywhere, right?
mm,
HR, finance, procurement, customer ops, right?
mm,
Anywhere that people are spending their day interpreting information from multiple sources, routing decisions, and chasing follow ups, right? A simple tell that we try to notice in our initial sessions is if your best people are acting like connectors, right?
mm,
Stitching data from many places, right? That's usually a good fit, right? And then you have volume. That's where
mm,
the value really compounds. So you get a small time saving per case,
mm,
right? But
mm.
then you multiply that by thousands and you start seeing the impact of the cost, right? So yeah,
Yes.
ops heavy. That would be my answer.
And, with a lot of clutter all around, would you like
Hmm.
to also give a few pointers to the business leaders that how they should evaluate an AI partner?
Yeah, I think there are a lot nowadays. Every day you see a
Uh,
new offering in the market.
yes.
I would say I would split this into three buckets.
Hmm,
Number one is, can your AI partner deliver real production systems, and do they have experience in doing this?
hmm,
Right. Number two is, can they do it safely? Right. Very very important word with AI. And number three, can they prove outcomes?
hmm, hmm,
For any client out there, any leader out there, a practical thing to ask is, show me your production checklist, right? If you ask that, you usually get a lot of insight, right? What
hmm,
is the AI partner's testing approach, right? Do they implement proper fallback behavior, right? Failures are definitely going to happen, right, in production. So it's
hmm,
important to know how your partner is going to handle those failures, right? A good question to ask, it's a very blunt question, but a good question to ask is, when the AI gets something wrong, right?
hmm,
What stops it from doing that wrong thing, right? And a serious partner, right, should be able to explain certain mechanisms, right?
hmm,
How will they implement human approval gates, right? How will they handle permissioning, right?
hmm,
How are they going to handle confidence thresholds, right? And I would also ask an AI partner how they would drive adoption, right? It's not
hmm,
just
hmm,
on the client side to drive adoption. So a serious partner should talk about how they'll handle workflow change, how they'll handle training, right?
hmm,
Training is very important. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a pilot that no one's going to use,
hmm.
right? So yeah, these are the core things I think I would use to evaluate a potential partner.
Loving it, Advik. Like, you kind of are a technocrat along with a consultant, like, because the
I
answers are
think
a
I think
mix
the,
of.
a lot of this comes from the
Yes,
the uh, the matching of the co-founders. I think Rishikesh,
yes, yes,
then
yes,
bringing that technical background.
yes.
A lot of this, if you would ask me like 3-4 years ago,
Hmm,
I knew much less about the technical side than I do today. So every day is a learning.
We have a couple of questions on the HR platform that you have built. Is
Sure,
that
sure.
what are those recruitment challenges that led you to build Janus? If I'm pronouncing it right, is it
Janus, yeah.
Janus? Yes. And why
Yeah.
could existing ATS platform not solve them?
Sure, sure. So I'll take you through, Janus, where we got the name from first, right? Janus is actually it's the Roman god of transition, right? So that's where we kind of found the name from.
Mm.
Hiring or recruitment kind of represents that transition gate, right?
Yeah.
Uh, where, the problems we saw, Rishikesh, right?
Mm.
What we initially found through conversations with a lot of recruiters, a lot of TA heads,
Mm.
is that in India, especially, recruiting is completely overloaded. Okay. There
Yeah.
are too many applications, too many applicants, right?
Mm.
Recruiters don't have enough time. And
Mm.
that initial screening process is a real bottleneck, right? I think the platforms we saw people using, right, traditional ATS platforms,
Mm.
they are really good at tracking candidates, right?
Mm.
But we felt they don't solve the problem of evaluation. So what we built Janus with that exact pain point in mind.
Mm.
Structured scoring, right? With visibility into why someone scored the way they did, right? And then
Yes.
we built that workflow that turned screening into a decision process, right? I keep going back to the same point. We tried building it with explainability in mind, right? That's
Mm.
the core pain point we saw, right?
Mm.
We felt hiring decisions have to be defensible, right? That's
Mm.
why you get that rationale inside our application, inside Janus,
Mm.
which helps you understand exactly what our model was thinking.
Got it. I think a lot of these beautiful products have Roman names.
It seems to be a popular trend.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
pretty popular trend. So who suggested it? Was you or the other
we
co-founder?
we came up with it together, and in fact, our second product, it's called Veritas.
That's
The
again.
marketing. It's not a god actually, but it's the
It's not a
Latin
god.
word.
Yes.
It's the Latin word for truth.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
uh, yeah,
I remember
it's not.
there was some line which you used to study in eighth or ninth standard, something veritas. I'm
Uh,
forgetting that phrase. Like,
some a Roman phrase, a Latin phrase.
was it Julius Caesar or something? I
I
don't
don't
know.
remember.
And Advik, what are the improvements that HR teams see while after adopting Janus?
So the clients we're working with, right? Rishikesh, the first improvement I think we've seen and that has been reported to us is speed. Essentially, what Janus is doing when you post a job, you get 1,000 candidates in a day, let's say, right?
Hmm.
Instead of having to read through those 1,000 resumes, or at least seven,
Hmm.
800 of those 1,000, Janus will give you that ranking instantly, right?
Hmm.
So your shortlisting is happening very fast, right? The recruiter effort per role is dropping, right? Because your repetitive work is gone, right? Second improvement that we have noticed is consistency. So every resume is being scored on the same metrics, right? With the
Hmm.
same sort of mental model in mind. Also, your screening is becoming very structured, right? So
Hmm.
you get way fewer situations where your CHRO might be saying, okay, this candidate looked good on paper, but they didn't fit the role. Right, because you have that consistency now. We always encourage teams to make it very objective with the before and after. Right, again, coming back to that before and after baseline KPIs. Right, what was your time to shortlist before and after? What was the recruiter hours per role? Right,
Hmm.
what was your hiring manager feedback before and after? Right, and we're always very clear when we implement Janus with anyone is that the goal is not to replace your recruiters, right?
Hmm.
It's to remove the sorting, the repetitive work, right? So that your recruiters can spend time on candidate experience, on their own judgment instead of that repetitive work.
Advik, I've got a
Yeah.
question in mind. Like I kind of was
Yes.
thinking is that after all these ATS tools have come in, a
Mm,
lot of these marketing stuff has come in, like will help you make a CV which will not get rejected by ATS. So
mm.
candidates have started optimizing their CV to fit into that ATS criteria. Do you think it kind of will mislead the company and will lead to wrong hirings?
See, I think it's a problem. It's a real problem today, right? I think you'll see most candidates have like 4 or 5 versions of their own resume,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and they'll use that to apply to different jobs. Or very often they'll copy the job description, they'll put it into
Yes, they will
ChatGPT,
put it in
it'll write
ChatGPT and yes, yes.
a new resume for them, right? I think yes. To answer your question simply, yes, there is potential for recruiters to be misguided by this. In Janus, what we're trying to implement, one of the features we have is actually AI writing detection. So for each
Hmm.
resume, it will give you a probability score that okay, how likely is it that this resume was written by AI, or which specific lines might have been written by AI, right? We do have an AI interviewer product as part of Janus, right? And so then that will actually ask the candidate very tailored and specific questions based on the resume to try
Hmm.
to get that info out. It's
Mm.
very easy, in an interview to catch whether something is made up or something is authentic, right? So that are two things that we are trying to do in Janus, because this is a real problem now, right? Uh, it's a new age.
Yeah, I kind of see the CV and I'm like, I'm solving a Schrodinger wave equation, man. Like,
Yeah,
I was seeing a
yeah,
CV of a marketing guy and
yeah. You
it
won't
had
believe. I mean,
all the
at
jargons
Optivus,
in the world.
you won't believe, because at Optivus we're doing a lot of hiring, right? We're trying to scale
Mm.
this year, a lot, right? And so, see, honestly, on my team, a lot of what I look for is younger people, right? I want self starters, right? I'm looking for bright younger people, right? And what I see is, I mean, you're looking at a resume of a 22-year-old who looks like he has built Apple,
Yes.
right? I
Yes,
mean, you're
yes,
looking
yes,
like that, right? And then and it's like, so then that becomes very clear, right? And that's something
yes,
that our application picks out quite easily, right?
yes.
Something that our model does quite well.
And just on a lighter note, I was thinking, like, if we make the CV like, you don't write your achievements, you write your failures, and then let people optimize it.
It's a new idea. Let's start pushing this
Yeah.
idea
Because don't
seriously.
you think, Advik, like, people who can kind of, jot down all their failures and their learnings from there,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they will do far better as compared to people who just keep on writing the achievements.
I mean, the getting people to be authentic and honest on their CVs, right, is the
Yeah.
challenge now. And I think that
Mm.
more and more in the coming years of AI implementation in HR, you will
Mm.
see that more and more recruiters have to rely on interviews now, right? That becomes really the only way to weed out the candidates that are inauthentic, I think.
Thank you so much, Advik, for joining us on this session. Extremely insightful and always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, Rishikesh. Pleasure to be on.
Superb it was. Like, you kind of covered all the topics that we had in
Great.
kind of direct answers, very valid answers. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rishikesh.